hunting. So you need your outdoor card for both of them. So that card costs $9, roughly, $8.57. Once you have your fishing license, or your outdoors card, you then need to get a fishing license. So depending on what type of fishing you're doing or how many fish you're trying to catch, or for how long you think you want your license for.
The outdoor card.
Yep.
So you're gonna have to take it.
So the outdoor card is basically your hard copy of your license. To go along with that, you then would be purchasing your different types of licensing. So like down here, this person has their outdoors card. They have a game license. They have a wild turkey license. They have a fishing license. They have all the licenses here. Realistically, you're probably only going to have like one or two of these potentially. So depending on what you want, you can get either a sport fishing license or a conservation license. Any idea what you think the difference might be between them? So for the sport fishing license, you can keep more fish. The conservation license, you keep fewer fish. With both of them, you're still able to actually keep fish, just the range is a little bit different. You can then also get your license for 1 day, for 1 year, or for 3 years. So to give you an example, a 1-day sport fishing license is $12. The 3-year conservation license is $45. So it's not a huge cost difference between them. For 1 day versus 3 years, it's still relatively inexpensive for the amount of enjoyment and experience you can get outside. Now, as well, depending on your age, you may also have a fishing license. So anybody that's under the age of 18 or over the age of 65, congratulations, you have a fishing license. So I think a few people here already have a fishing license already. So you don't need to go through all of this. When you're between 18 and 65, you do need to get that license. So now, when you are fishing, you still need to follow as well different regulations.
So we don't need outdoor license then?
No, so if you're over 65, you don't need that anything. But you still need to follow the regulations. So all of the regulations are posted online. So at the end of the program, we'll pass out these little cards for people, which have just little QR codes that'll take you to things like the fishing license, looking at spots where to purchase, where to find fish, where to get your license, all the regulations. So there's lots of different information that are linked through on this part here. But we have regulations in Ontario on where you can and can't fish and how many fish you're able to keep and when you're able to catch them or not. In Ontario, we use fishing zones or fishing management zones. So we change what type of fish you're able to catch or when you can catch them, how many you can catch, based off of the area that you live in. Any idea why we might want to do that? Do you think it's going to be the same pressures on fish in zone 1 versus zone, say, 16 at the bottom here? All right, there's millions of people living in this area and maybe tens of thousands of people living up in this one.
Yeah.
So there's a lot fewer people fishing in some of these more northern areas. So there's fewer stresses on those fish versus down south where could be thousands and thousands of people trying to go fishing every day. So there's going to be a lot more people trying to fish and catch those. So we want them to have tighter regulations so that we're not going to suddenly, catch every single fish in the lake. Because if we were to have every angler come out here and catch all the fish, this lake would be empty of fish very, very quickly. And then depending on the species of fish, the rules and regulations will change as well. So to give you an example, around here, we have a fish called a rainbow trout. So we actually stock the lake with 1,000 rainbow trout every year. So if I go down here to rainbow trout, their season is the 4th Saturday in April until September 30th. So that's when you can catch them in the year. So do you think we can catch rainbow trout today?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're within that, so we can catch rainbow trout. If we were to be outside of those dates and you caught a rainbow trout, you just have to very quickly return it back to the water. Because once you cast your line, you can't really tell what you're going to be catching for the most part. So just make sure you're not taking photos of it, whatever. And so for limits of how many fish you can catch, for that rainbow trout, if you have a sport fishing license, you can catch and keep 2 rainbow trout. With a conservation license, you can keep 1. Now what that means is you can catch those, take them home for the day, and eat them. if you catch 2 today, you know, if outside of this program, if you were to catch 2 fish one day and then bring them home, that doesn't mean you can necessarily go and catch another 2 the next day. You have to consume or eat those fish before you can then catch more. So you can catch 2, eat 1, and then go back the next day and catch another. That's okay, but you can only have 2 like in your possession at any given time. With the conservation license, there's 1. Another example of a fish that we have around here, where are we? Let's go sunfish. So sunfish are another type of fish that we have around here that we might be catching today. So their season is open all year long. So spring, summer, winter, fall, if you're fishing, you can catch a sunfish. The limits for a sport fishing license are 300. The limits for a conservation license are 15. So you can catch a lot of sunfish with that sport fishing license, and even quite a few with the conservation license. Now you might not necessarily want to have a freezer full of 300 sunfish, but that's kind of the limits that you are able to work within. Why do you think there's a big difference between like rainbow trout and sunfish? Yeah, there's lots more. So sunfish, they will lay thousands of eggs every year. Rainbow trout is significantly fewer. So there's a lot fewer of them that are found in these lakes. The sunfish are something we call a panfish. They're a lot smaller fish. They don't get to be as large of a size. And like I said, they reproduce very, very quickly compared to something like the rainbow trouts, which you're more concerned in trying to protect. So does anybody know which zone we're in right now? If you look at the map.
16?
Yeah, so we're in 16. Yeah. If we were to go down and fish in Lake Ontario, we would actually be in zone 20. So depending on where you are fishing will change even just locally as well. Now, I mentioned a whole bunch of fish. Does anybody know what any of those look like?
No.
No idea. Okay. So I'm going to pass it over to Rosa to walk us through how to identify a fish.
All right, so as you saw on the fishing regulations, a lot of the rules depend on what kind of fish you're catching, which means that it's really important that you can tell what kind of fish you have in front of you. A good rule of thumb is if you're not sure what you've caught, don't keep it. If you're not 100% sure that it's the kind of fish you're allowed to take home, release it, let it go, because if you accidentally catch the wrong thing and then you get stopped and you're like, but I thought it was a rock bass. If it's not a rock bass, you could be in problems. And the best way to identify fish is by a couple of different parts. So who can name any part of the fish? Yes. Absolutely. So the gills are how the fish breathe. They are here. A couple things to note about the gills. Because the fish needs them to breathe, they're very delicate. So if you're handling a fish, you don't want to like make sure that you're touching or covering the gills. You can damage them. And on some fish, the gills are actually kind of sharp as well. Good. Okay, any other fish body parts? You can go for the really easy ones. That's totally fine. Fins, absolutely. Fins are a great way to identify the fish. There is this dorsal fin at the top. This is a sunfish, and you can see that it's all one piece. It's connected. There are pectoral fins, there's pelvic fins, there's a tail fin or a caudal fin, it's sometimes called. And the shape and size of those can help tell you what kind of fish you're looking at. A lot of fish have these things called spines on their dorsal fin, which are actually also quite sharp. So if you're holding a fish, we recommend that you kind of like brush these back and hold them like this. They look very similar. Does anyone notice any differences between these two? Yeah, the color is a little bit different. This one is a little bit like grayer, and this one is a little bit more green. This one also tends to have these like vertical black bars on them. Did you have one? No?
Fins.
Yeah, so that's one of the best ways to identify these two is you can see on the back of the fish on the dorsal fin. On this one here, it is a little bit separated, and on this one, it is connected. And the last one I'll give you a good hint for. These are both bass. One is called a largemouth bass, and one is called a smallmouth bass. Any idea what the last difference might be?
Yeah.
It's the sides of the mouth. Now, the reason that it's important to be able to tell these two apart is in a lot of places, there's a combined limit. So it'll tell you, you can take 10 bass or 5 bass or whatever, and it can be any combination. But there are some places you can only catch one or the other. And so knowing those differences will help you. You can see the largemouth bass has a mouth that goes a little bit further than the smallmouth bass. A lot of these differences are very subtle, and it's something that you'll get used to the more that you see these fish. But the kind of like overall point we want to give you is that if you're ever not sure and you've caught something and you're not sure, make sure that you let it go until you can figure out 100% what it is. All right, we're gonna do another one. These are also very similar. These are also fish that we may see some of today. This one here is called a bluegill, and this one's called a pumpkin seed. And these are both in the sunfish family. So as Chris was saying, sunfish are usually one you can catch a whole lot of on a license, which is, they're pretty common. We might see a good number of these today. Any differences we see between these?
Color.
The color, exactly. So the color on the overall body of the fish, but the other thing is the color of the gill cover. So right around the gill, we see this kind of edge. On a bluegill, it's dark or blue, and on a pumpkin seed, it has this kind of like orangey spot right there, orangey red spot most of the time. There's also some other differences in like shape of fins and that kind of thing, and you'll start to see more of those patterns as you get used to seeing these fish. Now the other reason is that there are some fish called invasive species that we want to be really aware of. Does anyone know what an invasive species is? So an invasive species is any species, it can be an animal, it can be a plant, it can be whatever, that has been introduced from another part of the world or of the country. It is not naturally found in this ecosystem, and it is causing harm. And a really good example of that is this fish here, which is called a round goby. Now, we actually have never seen round goby in this lake, and hopefully we will continue to not see round goby. Round goby were introduced in what's called ballast water, which means that they were in the water in the bottom of ships that were coming in from other parts of the world. When the ships came to Canada and then drained their boats, these guys came out and made their way into the waterway. And the reason that round goby are very problematic is that really fast, but they also eat the eggs of other fish. And so once they get into an ecosystem, it's really easy for them to take over and start to really hurt the overall environment. A couple of ways you can tell if you have a round goby. They grow, so they can be different sizes. There's this black dot on the top of their first dorsal fin. And then the biggest ID feature is on the bottom part, this fin here is combined and it's like a disc. So there's other fish where this will be split into two fins. On a goby, this part here is like a round suction cup. Because goby are very detrimental to the environment, there's a couple of things you have to do if you do find one. Unfortunately, we do have to kill them. Because if we leave them, they will cause a lot of harm to the environment. You do need to remove them from the water, you need to kill them, and then you need to put them somewhere that they're not going to end up back in the water. So typically that means walking like a good distance away from the water and then putting them in the bush somewhere. And they will be eaten by some mammal, and make sure they don't make their way back to the environment. There's lots of other invasive species that you may find, and this is one of the reasons that it's really important to make sure that you're following rules about like bait and things as well. So we're going to talk a little bit later about what bait we're using today. Make sure that you don't release fish from other places into our lakes. Part of your responsibility as someone who's fishing is to help make sure that our environment stays nice and clean. Are there any questions about licensing, about fish?
From where originally they came?
What does he need to bring with him? What did you say? Fishing rod, absolutely. You're not going to get too far without that. There you go. Awesome. What else does Chris need?
Bait.
Bait, absolutely. We left the bait in the fridge.
I'll be right back with my bait.
But we do need bait. Today we are going to be using worms. If anyone is like super not into using worms, we have some alternatives we can give you as well. There are lots of different things that you can use to bait your line with. Another option is something like this. It's called a spoon or a spinner, and it is basically something that is supposed to look like what the fish is eating. There's a million kinds of things like this. You can use ones that look like fish, ones that look like bugs. There's a whole world of like fishing lures and all that kind of thing. But a lot of it comes down to like practice and trial and error. And there's a lot of people who have like secrets that they swear by this one particular lure. It's something that you'll just kind of like develop what you like and what works. But for today, we're using we're using worms, which is generally what we have found works really well in this lake. Awesome. Okay, so we have our bait. Anything else? So those, Oh, a life jacket? 100%. So today, because we are near water, anyone under 18 has to wear a life jacket. We highly recommend that anyone over 18 also wears a life jacket. We're gonna wear them. It's a good idea anytime you're near water. Some other things that we're gonna add for water safety. First, I'm gonna give Chris this net. Are removing the hook. There you go. And in this net, I am also gonna throw 2 other things. This is a first aid kit. Never a super bad idea. And this is a throw rope. Anytime you're near deep water, it's a good idea to have one of these handy. Essentially, if someone gets like stuck in the water and slips, you throw this to them. There you go. There's a couple of other health and safety things that Chris already has on him. One of them are his glasses. So, of course, it's pretty sunny today. You might want sunglasses anyway, but anytime we are fishing, you need something to cover your eyes. And the reason is that fish hooks are sharp, and when you're swinging rods around, they can go flying, and it's pretty unpleasant to get a fish hook stuck anywhere, but especially in your eyes is not good. So anyone who doesn't have glasses or sunglasses today, will loan you a pair of these snazzy Learn to Fish sunglasses, which Chris already has on. What other tools do you think he might need? I see some people already have with them.
Sunscreen.
Oh, sure, sunscreen, yeah. And Chris already has a wonderful sun hat. Excellent. Bug spray, 100%. Depending on where you are, mosquitoes, there might be ticks, all kinds of good stuff to try to avoid. We also just kind of generally have a lot of our equipment in this, which is called a tackle box. It's up to you what you want to keep in your tackle box, but there are some things that you always are going to want. One of them is a pair of pliers. If you have anything in your fish's mouth, like if you hook a fish, you're going to want to remove them with pliers like this. We also have some extra fishing line just to make sure if anything goes wrong, we have some extras. And then we also have some hooks. For this program, we always use barbless hooks. Normally, a fish hook kind of has...
Look at the Learn to Fish sign up here. You can see a barbed hook.
The fish hook kind of hooks like this, and then there's a second sharp piece that comes back like this. That makes it so that it's really difficult for the fish to slip off, but it also means that if it gets stuck in your arm, it's very difficult to get out. And so for health and safety, we don't use those. We use barbless hooks. The other benefit of barbless hooks, and here I'll give Chris this tackle box. It doesn't look like he's holding enough stuff yet. Is that in this lake we have a lot of turtles, and if you hook a fish, the fish is pretty good at like working the hook out of its mouth. Turtles are really bad at it, and so if you accidentally hook a turtle, you can actually cause a lot of damage to their mouth. Barbless hooks are really much easier to get out of turtles' mouths, and we do not want to catch turtles. Especially right now, you may see some turtles wandering around laying their eggs. So hopefully we get to see one today, but we're definitely not going to try to hook them. And one of the last things that we're going to make sure that Chris has is what we call a fishing plan. So today we're somewhere that has a lot of people around, that's really close to a major city. This is a pretty safe area to go fishing, right? There's like a park staff. If anything goes wrong, you can go walk up to the gatehouse. But anytime that you are going outside, especially if you're alone, it's a good idea to have a plan and tell somebody that plan. So let's say Chris is going fishing. He might tell a friend, hey, I'm going to Heart Lake. I'm going to be back around 3. I'm going alone. And I'm like, cool. And that way, if it's 5 p.m. and Chris isn't back yet, I can be like, and maybe I'll give him a call. And if I don't hear from him again, at least I know the last place that he was. And most likely what'll happen is I'll come down to the gatehouse, be like, hey, is Chris here? And he'll be like, oh yeah, my phone died. And everyone's good. But it does mean that if there ever was an emergency, somebody knows where you are and knows when you're planning to be home. And of course, if you're ever going like boating, if you're going somewhere that doesn't have cell service, if you're going alone, that all becomes extra important to make sure someone knows where you are. Is there anything else, Chris, that you think you need to have a good day fishing?
Yeah, just making sure having the cell phone is, and
Yeah.
making sure that it's charged is really good. Not just for emergency situations, but if you catch a fish, you're gonna want to take a picture of it.
Yeah.
You can show everybody else, like, look at this cool fish I caught. We were talking to somebody today, and he was showing us a video this morning already of the fish he caught.
Yeah. All right, can everyone give Chris a round of applause for being a good, safe angler today?
Right.
All right.
Type of fishing that you are doing. So the one that we're doing today is spin casting, but you can also do something like fly fishing, where they use a slightly different rod. So for the fishing we're using today, we use a heavy lure on the end and then a very light line. If you're doing fly fishing, they use a heavy line and then a very light lure or fly on the end. So it's a little bit different ways that you can do it fishing. But this is what we're using today. So does anybody know any of the parts of our fishing rod? What do you think this long part is here? So this would be the rod. We have our fishing line on the rod. If we look at the very end of our rod, what would this sharp pointy thing be?
Hook.
So you got the split shot, or our weight would be there, but at the very end of our line,
Hook.
that's our hook, right? So that's
Yeah.
what we use for catching the fish. What about this thing here? Yeah, so it's a bobber or float. So we use that for keeping the line above water. So the hook is for catching the fish. The split shot or weight is for bringing your line down, so it's not just floating on top of the water. And the bobber is for keeping basically your line from sinking to the bottom. So we use this. This will be sitting kind of on the surface of the water, and you're just watching that. So it might be sitting, and then it'll go under the water. And usually if that happens, that means that a fish has grabbed your line or grabbed your bait.
So this is always fixed the distance from.
No, depending on how deep you are, you can adjust that. So in deeper waters, you can have this being like several feet in length, or even deeper if you're doing like ice fishing. If you're doing like just general spin casting, sometimes you won't even have the bobber on it. You might just have something like the spoon on the end, because you toss out and then you're reeling it in. You're hoping that the fish will try and catch that line as it's moving. For what we're doing today, we're just going to be basically casting our lines in and then letting them sit for a little while and letting the fish hopefully find our worms and take a bite. Depending on the way you're trying to catch fish will change what you're going to be using on this end here. Down at the end here, we have our handle for our fishing rod. This is where we're going to be holding, and this section here is what we call the reel. So the reel is what we use for reeling it in. So there is the little handle here. Depending on whether you are left-handed or right-handed, all of our fishing rods that we have today, we can change the side that this is on. So normally you're going to be holding your rod with your dominant hand, the hand you're right with, and then you reel with your non-dominant hand. So if you're left-handed, you'll be holding it here and reeling from the other side. So just let us know, and we can either grab you a rod or we can just swap it to the other side if it is not working for you. Then there's this last thing we want to look at is this metal loop. This is called the bail that's here. This is what is holding our line from running away on us. So I'll show you quickly. That essentially just lets my line out. So I open it up and down it goes. So whenever you're moving this bail, you need to make sure that you're being very careful, that you're not just dropping it wherever, because as soon as you open up that little metal loop, it will just drop your whole line out if you're not being ready for it. So when we are ready to cast, there's a few steps we want to take. So the first thing we want to do is hold our rod. So usually I hold it around this base here. So depending on how big your hands are, will change how you're holding it. I usually put 2 fingers in front, 2 fingers behind. If you have a smaller hand, you might want to put your entire hand in front. If you have a bigger hand, you might just want to have like 1 finger. So I do 2 in front, 2 behind. The next thing you're gonna be doing is holding your line. So with my pointer finger, I'm gonna grab the line and hold it with my one finger against the rod itself. Next, you're gonna be opening up your bail, that loop. And we saw last time when I wasn't holding that line, the whole thing dropped out. Because I'm holding my line, it holds it in place. So once I'm now ready to cast. But when I'm going to cast, I want to make sure that I have some room and some space. Because if I were to cast here right now, what might happen?
You come here.
I could hit one of you guys, I could hit the tent. And remember, there's a sharp hook up potentially on the end of this line. So I want to make sure I have some space. Now, I have a little bit more room over here where I have some space that I'm not going to suddenly hit you right away. Or I'm not going to hit the tent behind me. Now there's two different general types of casts you can do. There's a side cast or an overhand cast or an overhead cast. So the side one, you're going to go to the side, either to one side or to the other. And then you cast out and you let go of your finger and kind of point to where you want it to go. So it looks something like this. So I pulled out and let go, and it goes flying out. So that's a pretty general one to do. And that's what I think we're mostly going to be using is the side cast today. Because if I do an overhand cast, depending on how I do it, I could hit the trees that could potentially be above me, which we have lots down where we're going to be fishing. I could hit somebody that's behind me here, that's maybe walking down the path. If I hold my fishing rod too long up, I have now looped my line. I go to cast and it's not actually going to cast. It's all wrapped around here. But if you are doing this cast, the way that you would do it is the same as the other one. So you're going to hold your line, open the bail, and just in one smooth motion, I'm going to make sure there's nobody behind me, pull back and out. And releasing kind of through the top portion of my cast. When you're ready to reel in, you close the bail again, so bringing it flat across, and then you just reel it in. Now, when we're catching a fish, if you did catch something on your line, you don't want to go really, really fast. Because what do you think might happen if I go really fast, if I'm reeling it in? Let's say I cast, I close my bail. What do you think is going to happen if I reel really fast?
That can break.
Yeah, we go like this. I just rip the hook right out of the fish's mouth and I'm not going to have anything on it. If I go too slow, the fish is just probably going to eat my worm and then spit out the hook and keep on swimming. So you want to go with a little bit of solid speed, but not super fast that you're going to pull your hook right into the water. If you get caught on any plants, because there could be lily pads, there could be rocks, there logs, please don't just yank on your rod like that. You might potentially snap your line, or if it comes free, suddenly that hook is going to come flying back at you, and we don't want that to happen. So if you're hooked on anything, you just want to kind of put your rod lower to the ground, and then I would pull on my line close to the ground. That way, if it does break free, it's just going to still kind of stay in the. So this fish is dangling from my line. What should I be doing? Yeah, we want to unhook it from there. So it could potentially be very easy where it's just like a little unhook. Sometimes the fish will swallow the hooks. If that's the case, we can try and get it out with the pliers, or we will potentially have to just cut the line and let the fish go. Because if I were to just be playing with this for a really long time and pulling, that could really hurt the fish's throat. So if I can't get it very easily, or within a short period of time, I'm going to just cut the line and let the fish go. And they can deal with some of these hooks fairly easily over time. Much better than that, than me like yanking on the insides. So I caught my fish. I'm going to be unhooking it, but one thing I want to keep in mind is when fish are out of water, they're not breathing. So when we catch a fish, keep in mind that anytime you have it out of the water, it's not breathing. So what we're going to do, we're going to do a little activity here. We're going to see how well you guys can do compared to a fish. So I'm going to catch a fish. When I pull it out of the water, I want everybody to hold your breath. You can breathe once you can stop holding your breath. but just see how long you can do compared to our fish, and we'll think about how they might survive. So I'm gonna catch a fish, and we're gonna run through a little scenario where I'm gonna get this off of its hook. So on the count of 3, when I pull this out, I want everybody to try and hold their breath. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh man, I caught a fish. That's so cool. Oh, Rosa.
That is
look at this.
awesome. Oh, I wonder what kind it is.
Do you want to get a picture of me?
Yeah, I do. Here. Okay,
Okay,
so
okay.
just pose really quick. Oh no, it's really
Oh, hang on.
sunny.
Yeah, I got the
Yeah,
sun
let's
behind
turn.
it.
Okay.
Spots. Okay.
Okay, good. Okay, do one more. Maybe like
Oh,
put
this
this
is-
side. Oh yeah, that looks awesome. Wait, I can't tell. Do you think it's a pumpkin seed? Let me go grab my book really quick.
Here.
Yeah.
I think it might be a bluegill.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. So I wonder, like, do you think we should keep it? We should throw it back.
No, I think we should put it back.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
But maybe let's measure it first. Hang on, I just want to see how big it is.
Okay, we're gonna measure it.
Whoa!
It's a big one.
That's a big one. Yeah.
That's
Good
the
job.
biggest one. All right. I get the hook out, right?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, of course.
Get the hook
Okay,
out
here we
here.
go. It's kind of stuck
Okay.
in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
good.
All right, we're good.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I think we're good. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're
Okay.
good.
And then I'm gonna release the fish back into the water. What do you think is gonna happen to that fish?
Dead.
It's gonna go like this. So fish, when they are out of the water, they are not breathing. Please keep that in mind. What realistically, what we would want, but then put it back in the water. That's why we have these nets. So I would put the fish into the net, and then put it back into the water. That'll give it a chance to swim around, get some water, or the oxygen over its gills, and then we can pull it out again. We can unhook it. We can try and do the ID. Just every little while, make sure we give it some water to breathe in. Otherwise, that fish will end up dying.
So you don't run away, don't do this.
You could leave it on the line.
You can leave it still on the line. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, we pull it out. Call one of us over. Say Rosa or Chris. We'll come over with our nets. We'll put the fish inside there. We'll then give it a little bit of a breath while you get your phone readies or your phone's ready. You can take your picture with it, and then we'll take it off the hook. So that way, we hopefully are not going to be hurting any of these fish. Okay.
Yeah, so just make sure you don't release until you get to the... There you go. Perfect. So when you start to reel it in, it will, in theory, automatically close your bail. But some of them are fairly sticky because they're newer, so you might have to do it manually.
So yeah, you can release a little bit too late on that one.
Good job. The loop open. And then swing it to the side, and when you bring it back to the front, you're gonna release your ring. Perfect.
Close in.
Good job. Make sure that you give other people space. If someone else is fishing in an area, don't, get too close. Okay, then,
I brought 2 extra rods.
yeah. Beautiful.
We can go now.
Yeah. You got your worm. You're good. Just beyond that little overhang piece. There's some little rocky spots. There's some picking tables. Nobody wanted to put their worms on?
No one wants to try? You're welcome to. Want to grab a worm, you can. If you want to try any of the other lures that you have, you can do that too. Any of those little like jelly, like soft plastic ones, you do those by just putting them on the hook like you would with a worm. And then any of the like silvery ones would go in behind your hook. But yeah, it's a lot of trial and error.